Let's get right into it. Today, we're unpacking a really incredible explainer of Teri A. Jackson's framework, Build Your Portion. If you've ever just felt completely weighed down by the world, or honestly just exhausted from trying to fix broken systems, you're going to want to hear this. We're talking about shifting from a foundation of inherited harm and domination straight into a life built on truth, care, and real boundaries. Let's look at how we actually step into our own sacred power. So the source material kicks things off with this really profound question. What kind of world are we building if we keep repeating the same harm? It's kind of the linchpin of Jackson's entire philosophy. It really asks us to wake up and look closely at the systems of control we were just born into. I mean, so many of us are operating inside family dynamics or workplaces that were churning long before we even got there. If we don't consciously look at what shaped us, we're just going to end up rebuilding the exact same world we're trying to escape. You know that heavy, unspoken exhaustion so many of us carry around? Well, Jackson totally validates that, especially for Black women and community healers. She points out that we literally inherited a world built on domination and control. We're talking about erased histories, forced silence, and this really toxic habit of calling mere survival peace. For generations, people have been told to just accept this inherited trauma. But, just because something is familiar doesn't mean it's safe. And that brings us to this harsh truth. Loving people become exhausted too. Seriously, even the most deeply spiritual, patient people are going to run out of steam when society constantly asks them to carry the weight of systemic injustice without a single break. Society loves to praise people for their endurance, right? Basically expecting us to just absorb harm and never complain. But a loving heart gets tired. Exhaustion is just the natural result of carrying way too much for way too long. So to actually change that foundation, we have to recognize the massive difference between what we've been taught and what's actually healthy. We so often confuse domination for tradition or even protection. But domination, that relies on control, fear, forced silence, and zero accountability. Compare that directly to love and sacred power. Love doesn't silence someone just so another person can feel in control. True love offers protection, it demands truth, it sets strict boundaries, and it absolutely centers on care. Now, because we've seen power abused so often, a lot of us really distrust the whole concept. But Jackson introduces this brilliant reframe, sacred power. This isn't the power to punish or dominate. Power itself isn't the bad guy here. Sacred power is that grounded, necessary strength we use to defend what is right. It's the power used to protect life and dignity and freedom. When you set a firm boundary to protect your own peace, that's not domination. That is you exercising your sacred power. Okay, so how do we reclaim it? It all starts with one massive, definitive declaration. This does not continue through me. The framework calls this the doorway to your entire transformation. It is a sacred refusal to pass on those old inherited wounds of shame and silence and overgiving. You might have inherited the wound, sure, but you don't have to be its next host. By saying this out loud, you are drawing a firm line in the sand for your future. But a declaration without action is just words. A sacred refusal means actually changing our everyday habits. It means we stop calling fear wisdom. We stop pretending that silence is peace. And we definitely stop believing that running ourselves into the ground is the only way to show love, or that being burnt out means we're living our purpose. Survival is not the ultimate dream. And Jackson makes it super clear this isn't about revenge. It's simply about setting a boundary so the wound stops dictating your life. So once you drop those old patterns, the real work begins. You build your portion. This is the amazing realization that you literally cannot hold up the entire sky. You aren't here to fix every broken system or heal every single person who crosses your path. Instead, Jackson empowers us to take our sacred power and focus it strictly on our specific assignment, the exact portion placed right in our hands. Honestly, it takes off so much pressure and lets us be truly effective exactly where we are. And your portion lives at a specific address. These are the tangible, real-world places where your values actually show up and do the work. It starts at your inner address, how you treat yourself. Then it moves outward to your home, your relationships, your work, and your community. You don't need a global stage to make a difference. Building your portion might literally just mean changing the way you communicate in your own living room or running a small business with real integrity. Now, it's worth noting this framework isn't for everyone. Jackson specifically targets a group she calls the willing. These are folks who are just done. They are tired of domination and they're ready to heal without pretending everything is perfectly fine. And the coolest part? The willing aren't these perfectly healed, fearless gurus.
They might be exhausted or grieving, but they have this incredible readiness to look at what shaped them and actively choose a new path, without anyone forcing them to.
And when the willing actually take action, they become portion builders. Basically, the willing in motion. A portion builder stops complaining about the crumbling old world and actually picks up bricks to build a new one. They move straight from theory into practice. They're constantly asking themselves, all right, what is mine to build and what is mine to absolutely leave behind? To make sure they don't accidentally rebuild the exact systems of domination they just escaped, portion builders rely on 7 core pillars. It starts with truth, being honest about what happened. Then care, so truth doesn't become a weapon. Protection to guard what's sacred, and restoration to repair what was lost. Accountability ensures harm can't hide, wisdom guides our choices, and finally, building, the actual creation of a totally new standard.
So how do you actually do this? The explainer lays out a super clear method. It's like a cycle of growth. First, you notice the pattern of domination. Then you name the harm. Next is that sacred refusal we talked about. You refuse to repeat it. After that, you protect what is sacred, rebuild with real care, and finally, you teach through your portion. You become a living example for others, taking you all the way from self-awareness to truly empowering your community. Actually, let's pause here because there's a huge distinction you have to make. The difference between repairing and rebuilding. You can repair a system if its original foundation was safe and truthful. But if a system was built on things like forced silence or control, it was never safe. You literally cannot repair a foundation built on domination. You have to scrap it and completely rebuild it from scratch with an entirely different spirit. As we wrap up this explainer, we hit what is arguably the most vital boundary of all. I am being called to build, but I am not being called to bleed. Just let that sink in for a second. Your sacred assignment, your purpose, absolutely none of it should require your self-erasure. You do not have to drain yourself completely dry just to prove you are dedicated or worthy of love. No way. Building without bleeding means your assignment has to have boundaries. The mission cannot become another master. For this restorative work to actually be sustainable, you, the builder, have to be protected. You need rest, you need joy, you have to treat yourself with the exact same care you are trying to inject into the world. You matter every bit as much as the work you're doing. So, we leave you right here, standing at the doorway of your own life, with one massive question to chew on. What pattern stops with you, and what are you going to build in its place? Remember, you aren't here to carry the whole world, but your specific portion. It matters. So challenge yourself today. Step into your sacred power and start building your portion.